I've always believed dogs have a way of knowing things we don't, some kind of sixth sense that cuts through the noise of the world and zeroes in on what matters most. That belief became real for me one summer afternoon, a day that started so ordinary it's almost hard to believe it ended the way it did. This is the story of Max, a golden retriever with a heart bigger than anyone could measure, and how he saved a baby from drowning. It was late July in a small town outside Asheville, North Carolina, where the air smells like pine and the rivers run cold even in the heat. The Thompson family, Mark, Emily, their 2-year-old daughter Lily, and Max, lived in a cozy house near the French Broad River. Mark and Emily were the kind of parents who seemed to have it all together. High school sweethearts, now in their early 30s, with a love for the outdoors and a knack for making everyone around them feel like family. Lily was their pride and joy, a giggling tornado of curls and curiosity. And Max? He was their golden retriever, 6 years old, with a coat that shimmered like sunlight and eyes that held a quiet wisdom. Max had been with them since he was a pup, a wedding gift from Emily's dad, and he'd grown up alongside their life, loyal, gentle, and always watching. That Saturday, the Thompsons decided to have a picnic by the river. It was one of those perfect summer days, blue skies, a breeze that kept the heat at bay, and the kind of light that makes everything look like a painting. They packed a basket with sandwiches, lemonade, and a few of Lily's favorite snacks, and headed to a spot they loved, a grassy clearing where the river widened into a shallow, lazy stretch. Max bounded ahead, his tail wagging like a metronome, chasing dragonflies and sniffing the air. Lily toddled along, clutching Emily's hand, her tiny sneakers kicking up dust. They set up a blanket under a big oak tree, and for a while, everything was perfect. Mark tossed a frisbee for Max, who leaped into the air with a goofy grace, catching it every time. Emily sat cross-legged on the blanket, feeding Lily bits of peanut butter sandwich and laughing as the toddler smeared it on her cheeks. The river babbled softly, its surface catching the sunlight in little flashes. It was the kind of moment you want to bottle up and keep forever. But life has a way of turning on a dime. Mark and Emily got caught up in a conversation, something about a home repair project, nothing urgent, just the kind of talk that fills a lazy afternoon. Lily, restless and full of that toddler energy, slipped off the blanket and started wandering toward the river's edge. She was only a few feet away, but neither Mark nor Emily noticed at first. Max, though, was watching. He'd been lying on the grass, panting happily, but his head snapped up, ears perked, as Lily's tiny figure moved toward the water. The river wasn't deep where they were, maybe a foot or two, but a little ways downstream. It dropped into a deeper channel where the current picked up. Lily, oblivious to any danger, was chasing a shiny pebble she'd spotted near the water's edge. She crouched down, her little hands reaching for it, and then, whether she slipped or just leaned too far, she tumbled into the water with a splash. The sound wasn't loud, not enough to cut through Mark and Emily's conversation right away, but Max heard it. He was on his feet in an instant, his body tense, eyes locked on Lily. The toddler was flailing, her arms splashing uselessly as the current started to pull her toward the deeper water. She wasn't crying, not yet, just gasping, her little face a mask of shock and fear. Emily saw it first. "Lily," she screamed, her voice raw, like something ripped out of her. She scrambled to her feet, Mark right behind her, both of them sprinting toward the river. But they were too far, 20, maybe 30 feet, and the current was faster than they were. Panic hit them like a freight train, that sickening realization that they might not make it in time. Max didn't hesitate. He was already moving, his powerful legs churning as he bolted toward the water. He leaped in without a second's pause, his golden fur soaking instantly as he paddled toward Lily. The current was strong, But Max was stronger, his instincts kicking in like he'd been born for this moment. He reached her just as she slipped under the surface, her tiny body starting to sink. Mark and Emily were screaming now, their voices overlapping in a desperation cacophony. Max. Lily. Oh God, please. Emily's hands were clutched to her chest, her face pale as she watched, helpless. Mark was wading into the water, but he was still too far, his movements sluggish against the current. Max dipped his head under the water and came up with Lily's dress in his mouth, gripping it gently but firmly. Lily was coughing and sputtering, her arms flailing, but she was alive. Max swam hard, his legs kicking powerfully, carrying her back toward the shore. The current tried to pull them downstream, but Max fought it, his eyes fierce with determination. He reached the shallow water just as Mark got there, his arms outstretched, tears streaming down his face. Mark grabbed Lily, pulling her from Max's jaws and clutching her to his chest, sobbing her name over and over. Emily was there a second later, wrapping her arms around both of them, her cries mixing with Lily's wails. Max climbed out of the water, shaking himself off but staying close, his eyes never leaving Lily. He was panting, soaked to the bone, but there was a quiet pride in the way he stood, like he knew he'd done something extraordinary. Emily reached out with one hand, pulling him into their huddle, her fingers sinking into his wet fur. "Thank you, Max," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Thank you." Lily was okay, thank God. She was scared and cold, but unharmed, her little body trembling as Mark and Emily wrapped her in a blanket and held her tight. They checked her over, making sure she hadn't swallowed too much water, and called their pediatrician just to be safe. But she was fine, shaken but fine. The doctor said she was lucky, and Mark and Emily knew exactly who to thank for that luck. They didn't let Max out of their sight for the rest of the day. Back at home, after Lily was tucked into bed, warm and safe, Mark and Emily sat on the couch with Max sprawled across their laps. They were still shaken, their eyes red from crying, but there was a gratitude in their hearts that felt too big for words. "He knew," Emily said softly, stroking Max's head. "He knew before we did." Mark nodded, his hand resting on Max's back. "He's family," he said simply. Word spread fast in their small town. By the next day, neighbors were stopping by with treats for Max, homemade dog biscuits, a new chew toy, even a little medal someone had made that said, "Hero." The local paper ran a story about it, complete with a photo of Max sitting proudly next to Lily, who was grinning and holding his paw. The headline read, "Golden Retriever Saves Toddler from Drowning, a True Hero." Mark and Emily framed it, hanging it in their living room where Max could see it from his favorite spot on the rug. Max didn't care about the fuss, though. He went back to being Max, chasing frisbees, napping in the sun, and watching Lily with that same quiet protectiveness. But something had changed for the Thompsons. They'd always loved Max, but now they saw him differently. He wasn't just their pet, their goofy golden retriever who stole socks and begged for table scraps. He was their guardian, their hero, the one who'd risked everything for their little girl. Every year after that, on the anniversary of that day, the Thompsons would take Max back to the river, not to the same spot, but close enough. They'd bring a picnic, just like before, and let Max run free, his golden for catching the light as he chased butterflies or splashed in the shallows. Lily would giggle and throw her arms around him, calling him my hero in her sweet, childish voice. And Mark and Emily would watch, holding hands, their hearts full of a love and gratitude that would never fade. Max lived to be 12, a good long life for a golden retriever. When he passed, the Thompsons buried him under the oak tree by the river, where they'd had that picnic all those years ago. They carved his name into the bark, along with the words, "Our hero." Lily, older now, helped plant wildflowers around his grave, tears streaming down her face as she whispered, "Thank you, Max." To this day, if you visit that spot, you'll see the flowers still bloom every summer, bright and wild, like Max's spirit running free. And if you listen closely, you might just hear the echo of a golden retriever's bark carried on the breeze, a reminder that love, loyalty, and a dog's heart can change everything.